is Saturday, March 22nd. You know what that means. It is time for the High Risk Wrestling podcast. I'm sorry, y'all. Look, you know it's me, messing up all the time. The host, Jeremy Pierce. Welcome, one and all. Check out the socials, Charismatic Creations on Facebook and YouTube, Charismatic_Creations52 on Instagram, and of course the 215 on Twitter. And today's show, well, the ride of the Death Riders. We're going to look at this group, the story, the characters, where it started, where it's going, and hopefully talk about how it could end, should end, will it end. We'll get into all of that today, but for now, you know what's next, so just go on and hit my music. All right, here we are with the best factions currently in AEW. Start with number 5, the Op, Samoa Joe, Hook, and Katsuyori Shibata. These three men are dangerous. They know what they want. They know what they're doing. They know who they're coming for. And they are some of the best wrestlers in the entire company. And it still all boils down to Joe and Shibata mentoring Hook, raising him up, making him a better wrestler, making him just an overall badass. Number 4, we hurt people. The Hurt Syndicate, your current AEW Tag Team Champions, along with MVP, have come in to AEW, have just been a dominant piece of business. MVP does the recruiting, and if you turn him down, well, you get hurt. Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin have just been absolutely fantastic, bringing that aura, bringing that respect, bringing that prestige to AEW. Not that it was missing, but these are two of the most respected men in the entire industry, and now that they are tag team champions, we are going to get a lot of great matches, and really, who's going to beat them? Number 3, the Learning Tree. I know a lot of people didn't like this group when it first started, but Chris Jericho is an absolute genius when it comes to this business, along with Big Bill and Brian Keith. These three men have essentially figured out their role right now in AEW. Jericho is the current Ring of Honor World Champion. Big Bill's a former tag team champion. And Brian Keith, a talented wrestler in his own right, has been just a solid foil for a lot of men. They know how to elevate each other and especially elevate their opponents. Number 2, the Don Callis family. Man, oh man. I understand that this group has seen some members come and go, like Trent, like Hobbs, like Sammy Guevara, but the current grouping of them we have right now, led by Don Callis, we have Konosuke Takeshita, we have Kyle Fletcher, Brian Cage, Lance Archer, and Mark Davis. Good group, all horses, all big men, all talented wrestlers in their own right, and they have been absolutely fantastic. They finally have their footing. And of course, number 1, who the show is about, the Death Riders, man. We're going to dive more into them later in the show, but they are the top dogs because, well, not only do they have the current trios champions, but they also have the world champion who is finding ways to win week in and week out with this message being sent. The question is, who is going to stop them? We'll be right back. Spotlight is back, and this time it is shining on Shane Taylor Promotion. This is a group that I very much like, and I enjoy the work of everyone here. The leader, Shane Taylor Promotions, taking this group all the way back to his days in Ring of Honor, now back in Ring of Honor. Captain Shawn Dean and Carly Bravo and Trish Adora, the Infantry. Lee Moriarty, the current Pure Champion, Tiger Style. And of course, Anthony Ogogo, a man who has so much talent and potential, but I've never seen someone like this who just isn't used. They are an interesting group because they have all of the talent, and Shane Taylor is a great hype man and a great wrestler in the ring. You have Trish Adora representing the women's division, and yet somehow, some way, they don't win the big one. I still don't know how Lee Moriarty is the Pure Champion. When they're on Ring of Honor, they win. and they're being built up. But once they reach AEW television, you know it is a guaranteed loss. I joke about it weekend when you listen to the recap, and anytime Shane Taylor Promotions is on there, what happens? They lose, and I follow it with because Shane Taylor Promotions always lose, and I need that to change. There's so much potential in this group, and I do not want to see them wasted. We'll be right back. The ride of the Death Riders. We have so much to talk about today with this group. And it's weird talking about them because they are full of talented wrestlers, great workers in the ring, on the mic, and there is this apoplectic feeling for them, about them. Like, it's tough. It's very, very tough to talk about. So let's get into it. The Death Riders. They are comprised of Jon Moxley, the leader, Wheeler Yuta, Claudio Castagnoli, Marina Shafir, and Pac. Where did this group start? Well, it goes all the way back to the days of Mad Pro Wrestling in 2007 when Danielson and Mox fought each other and Danielson won. Then there was the Heartland Wrestling Association where Mox challenged Danielson for the Dragon Gate at Dragon Gate USA, and Danielson was under employment of the WWE won, and then Mox signed with the E, was renamed Dean Ambrose, and we go through all of that from FCW to NXT to the Shield to the time of the main roster to them leaving, coming to AEW. But it really started 3 years ago on an episode of Dynamite where Danielson and Mox were there, right? Danielson approaches Mox and say, yo, I want to form a tag team, right? Mox is sure on one condition. We've got to wrestle. Okay, so cool. Revolution of that year, they win, and Danielson won like out of nowhere. And that pissed Mox off. So now they're brawling after the match. And then William Regal comes out, making his surprise AEW debut to break up the fight and forcing them to shake hands. They then formed their team with William Regal acting as their manager, and they became the Blackpool Combat Club in honor of the English town where William Regal began his career. So yeah, the Blackpool Combat Club is born. Then we get the birth of Wheeler Yuta. Mox beats Wheeler Yuta in a non-title match, and Regal's offer Yuta a handshake and invites him into the group, which Yuta accepts, and they have two banger of a matches, and that final one on Rampage, where it wasn't even about Yuta winning, it was always about Yuta surviving, and that's what he did. And then Eddie Kingston and Santana Ortiz, they unite with the BCC to take on JAS. We have Anarchy in the Arena. They lose that. We have Blood and Guts, and the group is doing well. It's about fighting. It's about proving yourself in the ring. It's about growing as a competitor. And Yuta and at Forbidden Door teams up with Kingston and Shota Umino, who is another one of Mox's trainees, who you know, Mox mentors. So we're getting all of this. Then we get Claudio Castagnoli, who mind you defeated William Regal in his final match. He joins the BCC, and now we've got Yuta, we've got Danielson, we've got Mox, and we've got Claudio. And Claudio was Danielson's hand-picked replacement due to Danielson suffered an injury so he could fight Zack Sabre Jr. at Forbidden Door. So everything is going great. Even at that same Forbidden Door show, Mox defeats Tanahashi to become the interim the interim AEW World Champion. The BCC is doing great, and there's always been these rumors about, who did they want in the group? Who do they, want to be a part of this collection of men? There's talks of Takeshita. There's talks of Lee Moriarty. There's talks of Dan Garcia. They even spend time when they were feuding with the JAS of trying to get Dan Garcia to join, because deep in his heart, Dan Garcia is a wrestler, but he's also a sports entertainer. And we see later on in his career that Dan Garcia combines both and becomes a great wrestler and a great entertainer. So here we are with this group. They lose Blood and Guts. Claudio defeats Jonathan Gresham to become the Ring of Honor World Champion. So this group is winning gold, and then we have that one small downturn with CM Punk, and we going back and forth. Claudio loses the World Championship. Mox and Punk trade the World Championship. And then Mox ultimately loses to MJF as Regal turns on the group, because he was leaving. He was going to WWE, and it was just to build up more and more and more. So we get the bases of the group: Mox, Claudio, Danielson, Yuta. We are doing great here. So the group is doing great. The group, has its moments. Once again, they're in Blood and Guts going up against the elites. But they lose here and there. They suffer losses. And something isn't clicking. They're feuding with all these people, winning titles, but also losing matches. And then we get to the crux of the matter. We have the Owen Hart Foundation tournament. We've got all of this stuff that's boiling over, that's spilling over until we get to 2024, right? So Yuta and Claudio team with Pac in a 4-way ladder match for the Trio Championship. Pac had ultimately ended up joining the group. So later that same night, Danielson defeats Swerve for the World Championship. Fantastic. Okay. We are living up to the dream. And mind you, Danielson was on his way out. He was getting ready to go into semi-retirement. And that as long as he was world champion, he would remain a full-time wrestler, and his full-time career would end the moment he lost the championship, right? So now Danielson and the BCC, we're still the BCC, they resume feuding with the Elite. Mox comes back from hiatus and begins to feud with Darby Allin. The little pieces, the trinkets, are now moving around. Mox now has Marina Shafir to back him up. After All Out, when Danielson defeats Jack Perry, retaining the World Championship, Claudio and Mox attack Danielson, and they suffocate him with a plastic bag. And Wheeler Yuta doesn't know what to do. He ultimately joins, and now the BCC has no Danielson, and now it's Mox, it's Pac, it's Marina, it's Yuta, it's Claudio. Right? Mox would go on to defeat Danielson at Wrestle Dream to become the AEW World Champion, and he's been champion ever since. November 6th, they rebrand as the Death Riders. It was Mox's nickname, and this is the name of his finisher, right? So here we are with this group, and they are They are destroying people left and right, and people are trying to figure out, well, what's their motive? What are they trying to accomplish? And Mox makes it clear, this is not about the world championship. You do not get this. This is about becoming better. We have to break down AEW to build them back up. That's what we have to do. Everybody congratulated Danielson on winning the world championship, and his body did not hold up. So, you want this, you have to take it from me. And no one's been able to do that. Jay White came close. Orange Cassidy came close. Adam Copeland came close. And yes, the message changed a little bit with Mox kind of starting to be a scared bad guy instead of, being that bad as the group is. And Claudio, Wheeler, and Pac, they're the trios champions, and Marina Shafir is always there. And now we're starting to see people fight back. Willow Nightingale, my baby, is nullifying Marina Shafir, and Jay White and Copeland had a great plan, and yet they still failed, and it was all for naught. And a lot of people don't like that. They don't like that. They believe that the Death Rider storyline is dragging down AEW, but yet it has kept a lot of people in the main event. And yes, there are some things I would definitely change. But here we are. Who's going to beat them? If we look at our members, Pac, who's always back and forth because he goes back home to the UK. It's fantastic. Marina Shafir always has Mox's back. She's silent. I don't think she's spoken one word unless it was been in her home language, right? And we're waiting for the inevitable. They've been slow playing this match between her and Willow Nightingale. It's got to go down. Claudio has been Mox's biggest and best acolyte and supports that man through and through. Wheeler Yuta he's the cog. He's that peak. You know who Wheeler Yuta is? He's Cyborg in Zack Snyder's Justice League. This story in that movie has been about Cyborg. He's the heart, he's the soul. It goes how he goes. This is about Yuta. Because remember, he was the one going back and forth whether or not he should stay with Danielson. Should he oppose Mox? And ultimately he gave him. But now Copeland got into his head. But you see these people, you see these acolytes still supporting Mox, and then you have the leader and John Moxley who backs it up, and sometimes he doesn't because he has the rest of the Death Riders to protect them. So this group has been dangerous because we've seen what they've done to people, and then they've taken them out, and they've also been taken out. So yes, this group has been a boon for AEW, and they've also been a burden for AEW. So how does it end? Because at some point it's got to come to an end, right? Mox is defending the World Championship against Swerve Strickland coming up at Dynasty, right? The story is over when the championship leaves Mox's hands. Will it be Swerve? See, Copeland had a great plan, and he took out every single member with the help of Jay White, with the help of Willow Nightingale. And Swerve calls himself the most dangerous man in AEW. But it's just him. It's just Nana. So how will Swerve compensate for the rest of the Death Riders? Because he still has to worry about Ricochet. He still has to worry about Hangman. Will Swerve be the one to defeat Mox? Then you have Wheeler Yuta. It looked like he was finally going to grow some balls and leave the group, but once again he showed back up and showed his allegiance for the Death Riders and for Jon Moxley. Where does he fit in the story? And last but not least, the man who we all think, who we all believe, who we all assume will be the one to defeat Mox for the championship, Darby Allin, he's just MIA. They killed him, threw him down the steps, poisoned him, whatever. And Tony Khan rarely knows how to pivot, because we all believe that Darby Allin was to be the one to beat Mox for the championship, right? It's just like how we all knew he wanted Chris Statlander to be the one to defeat Jay Cargill for the TBS championship, but then Chris got hurt, and we just dragged it on instead of just pivoting and taking the championship off of Jay because we knew Jay was leaving. Do you keep the championship on Mox until Darby comes back? That would be bad. So you have to pivot, and you can't wait on Darby. Do you put it on Swerve and transition Swerve to feuding with Hangman again, to feuding with Will Ospreay, to feuding with Ricochet again, to main eventing All In again? These are all great questions. The Death Riders, like I said, have been a boon and a burden for AEW, but you can ultimately be the judge because they've put on some great matches. They have some great members, and they also have to start defending these trios championships. And I know they're defending them this weekend on Collision, but come on. There's enough trios teams there that we can get those feuds going, and we got to get Marina. Since the formation of this group, Marina Shafir has not wrestled one match in AEW. She's got to get in the ring. So there's so many things we got to do. There are so many things that we have to take a look at and be like, okay, how can we pivot? How can we make this better? But that is our show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Look on the screen what we got coming up. I'm sorry if you're listening to this podcast. Well, we got a couple of things coming up. The month is almost over, and we are moving on to WrestleMania. But check out the socials, Charismatic Creations on Facebook and YouTube, Charismatic_Creations52 on Instagram, and of course the 215 on Twitter. And as always, Anna J, Willow Nightingale, Chris Statlander, Gigi Dolan, Isla, Dawn, and Bailey. Holla at your boy. Peace.